Welcome to Beyond the Next Chapter. I'm your host, Whitney Clark, and it is Banned Books Week across the country. So we are diving into the history of banned books, not just in the U.S., but across the world. Book banning is not a new thing. In fact, the first book ban in the U.S. took place back in 1637. That's according to Harvard researchers. This week, the American Library Association is just one of the many groups offering events to highlight book banning. The ALA reports last year nearly 2,500 titles were challenged. That's the third highest number ever documented by the organization. So joining us this week to talk about it is Dr. Jim Blasingame. He's an ASU President's Professor who's written about the topic for the Washington Post. He's the director of the English Education Program and so much more. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here, Whitney. Thank you.
Did I get the name? Blasingame?
Blasingame.
Blasingame. Okay.
Nobody gets it.
That's okay. But what do your students call you?
They call me Dr. B.
Okay. I love it. And how long have you been teaching at ASU?
26 years.
Wow. Does it feel like it's been 26 years?
It went by in a flash. It's so much fun. And this is such a great place to be if you're a young adult book specialist, because all the young adult authors want to come here on their book tours during the winter.
Yeah, I love
Pick
that.
them up at the airport, drive them around.
That's so fun.
Wonderful.
Because our winters are the best.
Oh, yes.
So we know you teach at ASU. Tell me a little bit about your research into book bans.
Well, the thing that I'm most interested in is who gets hurt and how can we prevent that? A colleague, Sybil Durand, and I wrote an article. We won an award for this article called First Do No Harm, based on the Hippocratic Oath, which was about when you ban books, who are you taking out of the conversation? A very famous scholar, Virginia Low Hagen, did research on this about Asian kids and found that in many schools there are no Asian characters in the books that they read for class in the curriculum and very little in the library. So what does that say? Does it say that, well, you don't exist or you don't matter to them? It seems that it does, according to her study, and also it perpetuates kind of a covert racism, because the other kids who are not Asian, as they're going through the curriculum, it just enhances this idea that, well, Asian kids don't count. So people of color, Native American, LGBTQ, all these different kinds of kids, what can we do that's best for them? My doctoral students and I did a study of 647 young readers here in the Valley, from the Akamila Otham Peepash Nation, the reservation on the east side of the valley, through the affluent Scottsdale suburbs into the urban core of Phoenix. We gave everyone a survey, just a few questions, and we found that what kids thought was a good book was a book that had characters who looked and lived like them, faced adversity but survived, and in the end, there was hope. And I think, at least this is what we say in my class, adolescence is all about hope.
You do a lot of work with young adult literature.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the most important thing about a YA book is that it is told in the voice of an adolescent. A very famous author, Amy King, A.S. King, said that a good YA book makes the readers feel safe and seen. And, I've published interviews with over 300 young adult authors, and it used to be they were talking about letters. Now they're talking about email, but they say, I get hundreds of emails or letters a week in which kids say, how did you know my story? You told my story. You validated my life. Now I understand. It's not my fault that this happened, or I do matter, or my life is valuable. Young adult literature. And there are all these categories from, let's say, starting at around 10 with what we call tweeners, up into middle level, and then young adult, and then new adult, which is all the way up to 27, because our minds, the mind is what the brain does. Our brains are still developing all the way through 27, so especially boys.
So it is Banned Books Week, and we kind of want to start from the beginning. When did book bans really begin in the U.S.?
Well, you said it yourself, 1637, with Thomas Merton's book, New English Canaan. in which he was critiquing the Puritan culture, and they didn't like it. And as you know, they wielded all the power in that part of the colonies, and they did not put up with any Baptists or Anabaptists or anybody who didn't worship the way that they did. And I think there's a little something happened in Salem also when they went, went too far. But they didn't want that book. It portrayed them in a bad light, and that's typically been the case. I think as we come forward then to 1933, 100 and some years ago, there was a book by James Joyce, Ulysses. It's a recognized classic now. Every English major has to read that book. But at that time, it was banned for a couple of reasons. One was that a young woman, a character, has those kinds of thoughts about men, carnal thoughts about men. And also, it was written in a format that everyone didn't understand, but Random House brought a lawsuit and said that this is an important development in literature. It's called stream of consciousness writing. Mm-hmm. And also, the court decided in 1933, Woolsey, the judge, decided that you shouldn't be judging a book by one part. You've got to judge the book as a whole. Ulysses is not about, it's not pornography. It's not about a young woman's thoughts about a man. It's about life. And of course, it's recognized as a classic now.
Who actually does the book banning? Like throughout history, who have been the groups that have deemed books bannable, if you will?
It's usually political or religious, and of course, sex is always involved. But oftentimes, it's a group that has no other purpose than banning books, like Moms for Liberty, which exists right now, and they are picking out books that they don't like. It's a little suspicious sometimes in that you're probably familiar with House Bill 1069 in Florida. Judge Mendoza, federal district court judge, ruled that law unconstitutional and said that you're banning these books. I think they banned like 700 in Florida. And supposedly a person could just call in to the school district and say, I think this is a bad book, and they would have to remove it within 5 days. And it was supposed to be about sex, that it was pornographic, but Judge Mendoza looked at all the books that were on the list, and he said, well, these are recognized classics, and I can see at least 30 of these books that aren't about sex at all.
What does a book ban actually do? Just make it unavailable at the library or wherever?
Well, that's a good question, because one of the most famous young adult authors, Chris Crutcher, who's had books made into movies and sold millions of volumes, he always says, I love it when one of my books gets challenged because sales go up immediately. So when a book is banned, it isn't normally held out of bookstores. It's held out of schools and libraries, school libraries, or public libraries. And the law is pretty specific about how that has to be done. School board can't just decide we're removing this book. They have to go through a district process, and the process has to be according to Supreme Court precedents.
Okay. What are some books that have been banned throughout history that might surprise people? You already kind of mentioned a couple.
Well, let's deal with some right now. Are you a Judy Blume fan? Did you read Judy Blume?
I did read Judy Blume.
Oh my gosh, she is the most wonderful person. And for example, her book Forever is in the top 10 of banned books. One of my friends, Dr. Ricky Ginsburg at Colorado State University, just did a huge study on what's being taught in schools right now, and it included the most frequently banned books, and Forever was in there. Well, what does Forever say? Forever says basically that young women have been told all their lives that once you have sex with a man, that's who you have to marry forever, for the rest of your life. Well, maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe that sentences you to a life that's, well, less than the best it should be. And Judy Blume was a great advocate for girls moving from childhood into adolescence and adulthood. She showed them the way, but Forever is banned. And I think the most remarkable one is the Harry Potter books. some places are banned.
You've been doing this for a long time. You've been teaching for a long time, focusing on YA literature specifically. How have you seen YA books change over the years? Like the subject matter,
Oh, sure.
what's addressed?
Sure. If you go back in time, and the first really popular YA books are in 1967, The Outsiders, The Contender, Mr. and Mrs. Bojo Jones, followed soon after by the Walter Dean Myers books. Before that, juvenile books had been coming-of-age books, all about white rich people, and maybe there's a dog involved, and it never ends well for the dog. But anyway, coming out of the late 60s into the 70s and 80s, we see protagonists and other characters who are people of color, black people, Native American people. And then I'm trying to think of the very first one. I think it was in 87. There's a book that has AIDS in it. The main character's brother, we learn as we read, is gay, and he's dying of AIDS. And then we move into LGBTQ authors, which today there are a lot of LGBTQ authors, and some really good ones. And of course, if the science is correct, 11% of our students in schools are LGBTQ.
What are some of your go-to YA authors? What are some of the YA authors that are are really popular right now and still putting out a lot of work?
Well, John Green, of course. Lori Hall Sanderson. Oh my gosh, she's just great. And I think the good authors understand how to capture the voice of a teenager. Everything from the snarky humor to the vulnerability. There's some very good authors right here in town. Bill Konigsberg, for example, whose characters are usually gay boys. And I know for Bill, to capture the voice of teenagers, he goes to a family picnic and listens to how kids talk. You have to be careful, and I've had a lot of authors come to me and ask how to do this, but you have to be careful. Don't use too much modern slang because it'll date the book. In The Outsiders, for example, Essie Hinton, she has Pony Boy and Johnny and Dally and the others. There's tough and hood and grease, but there's not much more than that because if it did, it would sound like a historical novel.
Yeah. What do you remember reading growing up? Like, what are some of the books that you read that made you fall in love with literature and led you to where you are now?
Oh my gosh! And of course, I'm 72, so I would have been in high school when those good books were coming out. But The Outsiders, Stay Gold, Pony Boy. That still gives me goosebumps. And Eric Gansworth is another good one. Eric is Haudenosaunee from the Tuscarora Nation. He writes about Native American teens, and he's a very good author in terms of the literary quality of his works. Tobin Anderson, M.T. Anderson, who wrote Feed, he's like a genius. I mean, I don't understand when I have a conversation with him, half of what he's talking about, because he's so smart.
Yeah. I remember reading The Outsiders in high school. We watched the movie, the one with Rob Lowe, movie. We watched that. One. I think the book, though, that made me a really big-time reader that I was obsessed with is In Cold Blood.
Oh,
and
my gosh,
haven't read it as an adult, but I do want to reread it because lately I've been rereading books that I loved growing up, like Charlotte's Web. I loved that book. I recently read it, and it was even better than I had remembered it. So it's so fun to kind of revisit those.
Let me tell you something about Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. He did something that no one had done since Edgar Allan Poe, and that's to tell the story from the mind of the crazy murderer. Mm-hmm. That book just gives you creeps, but you can't put it down.
What do you like to read? Do you read YA books, or do you have a genre that you read for fun when you're not in class?
Oh my gosh, murder mysteries. Murder mysteries and some science fiction. A very good sci-fi author is P.J. Harsma.
Okay.
And P.J. introduced us, my wife and I, to a whole cadre of science fiction movie stars. Nathan Fillion, Alan Tudyk. In fact, we put on an event with them at ASU called Serenity, Softwire and the Science and Science Fiction, in which Nathan Fillion and P.J. Harsma and two of our, literal rocket scientists, the president of the Planetary Society and a professor who works on how new life starts on planets, and they did a panel on science fiction. But yeah, when my friends have a new book come out, I have to read that right away.
Who are some of your friends that have books coming out or that have just come out?
Oh my gosh! Well, Bill Konigsberg has one coming out very soon, maybe even two. And let's see. Oh, Eric Gansworth, I believe. He just had one come out. He has a series of books. Each one is in honor of a member of the Beatles.
Oh, that's cool. That's so cool. That's awesome.
And in our class, we just finished Apple Skin to the Core, which was a National Book Award long lister. And Eric zoomed into our class Thursday. And the students got to get on, face-to-face Zoom with him and ask him questions. So
That's so cool.
He's got a new one coming out, and his books are always well-researched because they go back to 70s, 80s. And also they teach a lot about life on the reservation.
Mm-hmm. What is your favorite thing about your job?
Oh, my gosh. Seeing people get excited about a book. And this has been so interesting. Once in a while, maybe every semester, I'll get an older student. And their experience with literature has not been that great. And then they're reading a book that they really get into it, and then they meet the author. And maybe they even get to do a presentation with the author at our state English Teachers Association. And it changes their lives.
Mm-hmm. I'm like sitting here hearing this thinking, like, can I come to your class?
You can.
Okay.
You can. And I would recommend you coming on Science Fiction Day or Zombie Day or Steampunk Day and wear a costume.
Yeah, I saw a YouTube video that ASU put out of you dressing up. And I will say, we'll hopefully edit that video over this podcast if we're watching on YouTube. And if it's not, we'll make sure that you see it because your costumes have been really impressive and pretty elaborate. When did that start?
It started with Cowboy Day. When I was a high school teacher, I don't know. Well, I went to the big cowboy poetry gathering in Elko, Nevada. And then in class, I put on, boots and spurs and a hat and a vest and a shirt and, the bandana and the whole thing. And I did cowboy poetry for them. And that has turned into a huge thing where my wife and I do a whole cowboy show.
Wow. With
dancing and singing and poetry and stories. We've done it at Segau Castle in Austria. We've done it for international teacher exchange students who come. And it's just a lot of fun. So it started with Cowboy Day. And I wrote a book, They Rhyme with Their Boots On, A Teacher's Guide to Cowboy Poetry. And then, I don't know, I just, Comic-Con.
Oh.
I started going to Comic-Con.
The one in San Diego or the one here?
The one here. Okay. Now, I'm sorry, Phoenix Fan Fusion. I have to get that right. And did some programs, with Stephanie Meyer and Nathan Fillion, Frank Bedore. Do you know who Frank Bedore is? He is the author of the Looking Glass War series of 8 books, but he also was the producer of the movie Something About Mary.
Oh, yeah.
And back in the 80s, the old ski movies, he played the drunken ski bum buddy who would do double flips off of ramps and things like that. Frank Bedore did some things with him at Comic-Con.
Cool.
And then, hey, a Captain Picard costume is not that expensive, and a zombie costume is not that expensive. In fact, oh my gosh, local author who now lives in Canada, Tom Levine, wrote a zombie novel that takes place at Camelback High School.
Oh, that's cool.
Sick. It's called, and our class got to do the book launch for it in Carson Ballroom in Old Maine. We were given money, and the publisher chipped in. We got books for everybody. Several high schools came, and my class divided up into zombies or theater majors, because the book is about how the theater kids, which is what Tom Levine was at Camelback High School, fight off the zombies because they've got nail guns and skill saws, and they've got lofts that they can go up in. And so we got all the students into one spot, and zombied them all up. They came with basic zombie, ripped shirts, and we had all the blood and all the, the wounds and things. And then half of the students would run and run and run and then stop, huddle, point, and scream until we finally chased them up up the stairs at Old Main. And then the zombies stopped at the bottom, and my wife had choreographed the Thriller dance.
Oh, wow.
And the music came on, and all the zombies did the Thriller dance.
That would have been quite the sight.
And then we went upstairs, and it was time for the program to begin with Professor Peter Goggin, who was known as the Zombie Professor. He's an English professor, and Tom Levine, and a couple of other scholars of zombie literature. And everybody said, do the dance again. We want to get it on our cameras.
Yeah.
So we did the dance again upstairs.
That's amazing. That must be so much fun. So this week is Banned Books Week. There's events at local bookstores, at libraries. The Phoenix Public Library is doing a bunch. Why are these types of weeks and designations so important?
That's a great question. And it all comes back in my mind to the Supreme Court case Pico versus Island Trees, in which Stephen Pico and some of his friends and their parents band together against a book banning group who was trying to get rid of 10 novels. And I look at this list of novels, and I either taught those when I was a high school teacher or read them when I was a high school student. They're great and very popular books, but they wanted those books out of there. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court, where they said, if you ban a book because you don't like the ideas in it, you are trying to, quote, prescribe what is orthodox in politics, religion, and society. And you're violating the young reader's First Amendment rights of free access to ideas. End quote.
Is there anything else you want to add that I haven't asked you that you think is important?
I can't think of anything. I mean, books are powerful. A good book can change a life, and the right book at the right time can even save a life. So we've got to get those good books in the hands of young readers. I think it's one of the most important things that we can do in education.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.